New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good evening, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. I'm your host, Revjimwebb. I serve as the Senior Minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I am also an author of the book, The Soul of Prosperity, as well as several other books, including Prosperity from A to Z, 30 P's for Prosperity, Create Your Self-Manifesting Vision Board, and most recently, Forgive Your Way to Prosperity. Those are ebooks that are supplements to the paperback, The Soul of Prosperity. So on Sunday evenings, we get together and we talk about prosperity. We talk about all the ways that we can draw more prosperity to us. And we talk about what we can release in order to allow the prosperity that is our natural birthright and a natural phenomena of our God consciousness. So we look at prosperity not just as money and stuff, but we look at prosperity holistically. We may look at professional prosperity, where, in the words of Florence Scovel Shinn, we have a wonderful job with wonderful pay where we provide a wonderful service in a wonderful way. We might look at prosperity of relationships, where our relationships are outward reflections of the love, support, patience, and acceptance that we have within. So they are harmonious and uplifting. We may look at logistical prosperity, where our lives just work and our struggles are minimized and we can move through the dance of life easily and effortlessly. Of course, we look at spiritual prosperity, where we find and keep the peace that passes all understanding, and other aspects of prosperity that I have yet to mention. So we look at all of this. And each week, I like to bring a new topic. This week, we're covering a topic that is a source and a force for prosperity that has been hidden in plain sight. The force for prosperity and a source of prosperity that we may not realize is available to us is the power, the wisdom, the grace, and the experiences of our ancestors. It's coded in our DNA. It's a part of our history, and it is a part of us. And it can be used to tap into a prosperity consciousness and to help us to manifest the aspects of prosperity that we desire. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I've got two guests tonight. I've got the Reverend Tonya Parker and the Reverend Iya Rosa Grillo. Hello, guys.
Hi there.
Hello, Iya Rosa. Hello, Reverend Tonya.
Hello.
It's so good to see you both. It's been such a very long time, almost 8 hours.
Yeah, we'll have to take the show on the road, huh?
Exactly,
All right.
exactly.
I'm
We
ready.
joke, we joke because they did an excellent presentation this morning at the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel's service on using the power of the ancestors. And we scratched the surface there. So tonight, we're going to go deeper. So, Reverend Tonya, first of all, why is it important for us to tap into the power of the ancestors? What's the importance of that?
Thank you so much, Reverend Jim. Definitely a number of reasons, but as you said, they're hidden in plain sight. They are a rich, deep source of wisdom. And if we just take the time to pause and to look back and to tap into who they are and what they have been through, that can help us to move forward more powerfully. They lived through some really challenging times.
Yes,
They amassed certain skills that may have been lost in this day and age.
yes,
And so being able to connect with them and tap into them, it's a way of reclaiming wisdom that we may have felt has gone by the wayside. So
yes.
that's one way that I think of.
Yes, that makes sense. There was a book when I was a child. It was a children's book. And the essence of it was that it was on the immigrant experience in the United States. And it covered many, if not all, classes of immigrants. And
Right.
the title of the book was They Were Strong and Good. And it emphasized the qualities necessary to come to a new country and to uh, thrive in the face of opposition and to thrive in the face of not even knowing the language or the culture and
Mm.
feeling like an outsider, and how to use, and I remember a phrase they used in the book, infinite resources and sagacity. Sagacity, same root as sage, wise,
Ah,
wisdom.
okay.
And so that was fascinating to me. So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that our ancestors, in order to make it, had to have such wisdom, such strength, and had to access so many resources, including divine resources. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely accurate. I love that word sagacity. I don't hear it spoken often or ever. So thank you for bringing that up. But if you think about who in your ancestry, who was the great sage? Who was that keeper of wisdom
Mhm.
that you may remember, or actually perhaps your parents or grandparents may talk about, there's so and so, and they just knew this,
Mhm.
and they had that, it felt like they had that information right at their fingertips. And for us, we're like, I don't know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Because it's outside of our experience, because as time has gone on, we have all of these conveniences that have come into play, and we have technology,
Mhm.
and we have prepackaged foods, processed foods, microwaves, things that make our life easier, so to speak, or faster, and we don't realize that we're disconnecting, and we're losing a whole lot of knowledge and a whole lot of wisdom
Mhm.
when we only lean into the new and don't lean into, that concept of Sankofa, go back and fetch it, looking forward, but looking backward, but moving forward, going back and fetching that wisdom from the past that can help serve us today. Because I would dare say we definitely need all the help that we can get today. And our
Yes.
ancestors can be an answer for that.
Absolutely. And it wasn't, if I hear you correctly, what you're implying is that it wasn't about what they did in terms of manual labor. It was about the wisdom and sagacity necessary to navigate that is lost when everything is convenient, easy, and prepackaged. Is that right?
That is right. Yes. Yeah,
So there's a
because I
whole
believe in ease and grace, Reverend Jim. So I'm not saying that we need to all be out there, you know,
hacking with
cutting
the
that
plow.
firewood. Right, right. But I just love how you reframe things so beautifully. Yes.
Yes, the skill set, and you know, one of the things that pops into my head, and it's very interesting, but it became a cultural meme that those who were of a heritage of enslavement were slow. And what we don't realize, this is just an example, but what we don't realize is that they were never slow. They
Mhm.
sabotaged the equipment so that they could rest and live. And then they acted as if they didn't know how to fix it. And if you recall that Alvin Ailey number, there's a hole in the bucket, Miss Sally, Miss Sally.
Mhm. Mhm.
That
Mm.
whole thing where where Miss Sally offers uh, a way to fix it, and then he comes back and says, "But that won't fix it, Miss Sally, Miss Sally." And finally, Miss Sally gets it herself. That was an homage to wisdom, sagacity, and a certain degree of guile. So it wasn't
Mm.
laziness or dumbness. And that's
Absolutely
absolutely
not.
fascinating. And that's the kind of thing that our ancestors had to employ in order to open to prosperity. Now, Iya Rosa, you, I didn't introduce these guys properly, and I apologize for that. Iya Rosa is a channel, a teacher. She has spent years researching her ancestral history and plumbing the depths of her ancestral line for their wisdom, for their power, for their spiritual teachings. And she channels the ancestors as well, and she channels yours. She does counseling, intuitive coaching, healing, etc. And so you have a very unique experience with the ancestors, channeling them regularly. So first of all, tell us, what is your experience like in working with the ancestors this way?
Um, and it's not work. The work is actually acknowledging it and letting it come through as it should.
Uh-huh.
Um, the big step for me was to move back to where my ancestors came into the U.S.
Mm.
I'm of Afro-Cuban roots,
Mm-hmm.
and in our traditions, as in many indigenous cultures, communing with the ancestors is not something new.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the First Nation Native Americans do it, the Chinese do it, the Australians on the that do the walkabouts in the bush. They're all
Yes.
communing with their ancestors. They're just opening up to listen.
Mm.
So in our African roots, that's just part of what happened. And it came across the Middle Passage,
Mm-hmm.
and it came across from different nations, because on purpose, those who brought our ancestors over mixed us up, and they came from different nations,
Mm-hmm.
mainly so they couldn't communicate. That was the main reason they did it. But we all persevered and figured that out. But they brought their own traditions, and they
Mm-hmm.
came to Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
and mixed the beliefs, mixed theirs with Catholicism
Mm-hmm.
to make it more palatable to the slave owners.
Okay.
When they brought the Africans to the U.S., they had to throw away their drums. There was not the common language, there was not the common religion in Cuba, because the enslavers were Spaniards or Portuguese as opposed to British or Scottish or others. They
Mm-hmm.
were Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those who came, the Africans came, adopted Catholic beliefs and traditions and syncretize them. That's sort of blending them, the Catholic
Kind of
faith.
mix their
Yes,
traditions in just enough so that they were recognizable, but not enough as to overwhelm the Catholicism for the for the
absolutely.
masters. Is that right? Okay.
Absolutely. Kept it
Okay.
palatable.
Kept it palatable. Okay.
And for us, it's still understanding. I still go to Catholic church
Hmm.
when I want to pray for and to my parents. I
Mm-hmm.
go to Catholic church because that was comfort for them. I was told to never give up the traditions in which I'm raised. So it's very
Hmm.
important to me still. But
Okay.
now I'm studying to be an interfaith minister.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
So it sounds like you go to Catholic church to commune with the energies of your parents because vibrationally that's where their energy is. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, absolutely. And now I am living an hour away from where my ancestors, my grandparents, entered the U.S.
Wow, that must make it much more simple to be in that energy. So, one of the things you said was quite intriguing, and it leveraged off something that Reverend Tonya Parker said as well. It's not about reaching out to the ancestors, it's about listening because they're always there. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about that so that they can understand how accessible the ancestors are so they don't think there's some great mystery to it?
You know, as I talked about this morning, we don't do this with the front of our heads.
Mm-hmm.
We absorb it through our skin, we absorb it through our minds, we absorb it in different ways. If you're near your ancestral land, take your shoes off
Mm,
and feel it and feel it. And just understanding, just listening to that voice from the heart, not from the head,
mm,
realize that what you've been hearing, something that you usually call you call your own smarts, is your ancestors telling you.
mm,
You know, years ago, before I opened up to this, before I could not fight it any longer, I would
mm-hmm.
say something to someone who needed to hear something, and I'd go, boy, that sounded good. I didn't know that was that smart. And then I realized, no, I'm not that smart. I'm sitting here and not getting in the way of spiritual wisdom to come through.
Yes,
And
yes,
know that whoever needed to be near me at the time, they come and look for me because I'm a portal
yes.
to pass on message to whomever I come in contact with.
Mm,
Mhm.
When I do
yes,
my sessions now, sometimes I talk to my number one guide and I say, who is it that I need to know about for this particular person that I'm about to meet with?
mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll get a total download on some ancestor of theirs that, lived 3 generations back.
Mm-hmm.
And that ancestor will walk in the door with them
Mm-hmm.
or will plant themselves and we'll have a conversation, the three of us.
Yeah. Wow. That is absolutely wonderful. And it sounds like they are a fount of wisdom and blessing for you and for your clients.
Every time it happens, I get stronger, I get blessed
Mm.
because
So,
spirit is grateful because they've now found a place to communicate with those that they love who are still walking this earth.
so for our viewers, the task is to be still, like the scripture, be still and know that I am God. Be
Yes.
still. Your ancestors are waiting for you to A, give permission, and B, be still enough to hear, feel, and sense them more consciously than unconsciously, because
Mhm.
you've probably been doing it unconsciously. And because the veil has been lifted, it sounds like it is much easier to consciously contact the ancestors for their wisdom, for their strength, for their guidance. Is that accurate?
It's right. Don't let your brain get in the way.
Don't let your brain get in the way. Contact your ancestors through your energies and your feelings.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That's wonderful for our viewers. Now, we've talked a little bit about some of the ways that our ancestors can help us. Reverend Tonya, can you share a little bit more about what type of help we can get from our ancestors?
Sure. Oh my goodness. Because they are those founts of wisdom, as you say, they can help answer a number of life's issues, and they can help us to tap into the energies that we're calling forth. I was speaking this morning about my cousin Hulon Willis, who is this big, burly man, and he was a 10th degree black belt in karate,
Yes.
and he was always a personal hero to me. I loved him to no end, and when I need to lean into a sense of power and
Mm-hmm.
strength, he's the
Mm-hmm.
ancestor that I call on. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you remember years ago, the Grey's Anatomy, I think it was Grey's Anatomy, they had an
Mm-hmm.
episode where they put their arms akimbo and they were in that
Yes.
Superman stance. And they're
Yes, I
like,
remember that one.
right. And you stand in that stance for a period of time and you start to feel more powerful. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I've done that before, but for me, I call on Cousin Hulon. And
Okay.
he's like my
Okay.
Superman stance,
Yes.
because
Uh-huh.
not only was he physically powerful, but he also withstood a lot of mental and emotional stuff
Challenges.
by
Yeah.
being the first Black man to graduate from the College of William and Mary, which ended
Mm.
up becoming my alma mater too. And
Yes.
so, I tap into that. I tap into different energies of the ancestors that I either know or I've heard about, because I didn't even
Mm.
need to know about my great grandfather, Eddie Loper, Eduardo Lopez, who immigrated from the West Indies. I read about him in the county history book and other
Mm.
books, biographies that people wrote. And I saw this man with these wild dreadlocks and these bow legs, very dark skin. And he was known to be a powerful witch doctor in the area. And so no wonder I started this witch movement, huh? I haven't
Right.
veins, but as a healer, he was a powerful healer. And my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother Cornelia, whose birthday is
It's
today,
today. Yes.
yes, along with your mom, I love,
Yes.
she was known as the neighborhood counselor. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that because I was, what, 6 when she passed or what have you. I
Mm-hmm.
was young, but my
Yes.
mom would tell me stories. And when
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, my first career was as a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So we can tap into and lean into these skill sets that they have, this wisdom that they have, to help shore us up in certain areas.
Yes, I want to explore that a little deeper in a moment after we go to break. But before we go to break, I want to make sure our viewers understand that they have already been tapping into ancestral energy and how easy and effortless it is when we let down our ego defenses. So I'm sure all three of us have an inadvertent tapping into ancestor story. So I'll start with mine, and I want you to share yours so that before we go to break, our viewers understand your ancestors are waiting. You've already tapped into them, they are already tapped into you. All you have to do is let go. So I'm going to tell my story first. I was down in Fort Lauderdale with a dear, dear friend, and we were going to a dinner party, and we were supposed to make apple pie for the dinner party. Well, you know me, I can't boil water, but apple pie is one of my favorite things because I watch my grandmother make apple pies. And anytime there's an apple pie around, I'm between 4 and 8, safe and warm in my grandmother's kitchen with her making an apple pie from scratch.
Mm.
Well, he was making this apple pie and he was stumbling and fumbling around. And I didn't even know I knew this, but I said, Terry, you don't know nothing about making no apple pie. Get out of the way. And I said it in my grandmother's voice without even knowing it. And all of a sudden, I started doing stuff, and I didn't even know what I was doing. But we took that apple pie to that dinner party, And we got invited back to every dinner party they ever had because they still talk about that apple pie to this day, 20 years later. And that was my grandmother's apple pie because the ancestor came through. Now, I know you guys have some ancestor stories like that to just illustrate for our viewers how easy it is for them to come through you when you let them.
Yes. Iya Rosa, do you want to go first?
So I have this Uncle Bebo. That was his nickname. His name was Henry. In Spanish, it was Enrique Grillo. And he was the first to come from Florida to settle in Washington, D.C. And he was the anchor for his siblings to come up. And when I was little, he passed when I was 8. But I had enough years in kindergarten and first grade and second grade. He passed when I was in 3rd. To remember that he would have me collect all my A papers. Any paper from school that I had an A, I would have them in a pile, and when he would come over, he'd give me a quarter for each one. A minus never worked. It had to be an A. And so when he'd leave, I'd have $5. I'd have $5 at that age. That was huge money. So one day someone was channeling for me, and they called him. They showed me his car. They said, you need to get a car just like that. He had one of those Cadillacs with the fishtails and the convertible and the whole bit. He said, find it. And sure enough, it came to mind. I went on the internet, I found it, and I ordered one. And it was his reminder to me toward excellence and wealth. That he always lived large and he always lived in excellence. And even at 8 years old when he passed, he had marked me. And I'm constantly reminded of him. And when I need to do well, he comes to mind for me. That was our time. As crowded as the house was and how many other people, he always took time for me. And he is an angel who continues to communicate with me and wheels and deals when I need to.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Iya Rosa. Reverend Tonya.
I love that.
Yes.
So I spoke of my grandmother Cornelia earlier, whose birthday is today, and she really has been riding with me for quite some time. She was my original childcare person. When the other siblings, I'm the youngest of 6, so when the other siblings went off to school or wherever they went, I stayed back with grandma. And so over the years, I have come to understand, and Iya Rosa, I get it when you say you thought you were smart, and then you realize it really was the ancestors coming through. And so some of the cooking that I've done, and I have no idea how to make things. And I got the confirmation that, yes, indeed, it was my grandmother, Cornelia, who was coming through and helping me cook. And even to this day, people say I make the best filet mignon and all these meat dishes, and I don't even eat meat. But, it's like I'll know just when to stop the seasoning and what temperatures are right. And I don't know if my grandmother ever cooked filet mignon. I'm sure she cooked some sort of steak. But, she's the one who comes to me for the cooking. And she's also come during periods of automatic writing for me, where I have no memory of the writing process and what I've put to paper. And I've heard and received that she is the one who's coming forth. And I never knew her to write. I knew my mother wrote a newspaper column for over 50 years. Perhaps she got it from my grandmother, but there's my grandmother showing up in the writing and cooking arenas for me.
Beautiful. So, for our viewers, you've heard several stories about how the ancestors are A, there, B, waiting, and C, available when you open. So, we're going to come back after break and we're going to talk about how they can help us on our prosperity journey here on the New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity. And one of the things we're going to cover now is all the ways, or some of the ways, that our ancestors can help us. Reverend Tonya, you mentioned earlier today something that was just fascinating to me, and that was how if there are certain qualities that we need to experience or exhibit in order to allow our prosperity, there may be ancestors who modeled those qualities, and those ancestors are available to us. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yes. So our ancestors, we may tell ourselves that we are limited, in our humanity, we may see ourselves that way, and that we may have only this type of skill and that type of skill. But because we have the DNA of our ancestors in us, we can tap into so many more skill sets and characteristics that they have embodied. And so all we need to do is just ask. If we know that there is an ancestor who embodies some particular skill, we can tap into that. But there may be situations where we just don't know. We don't know, either because of adoption or other family situations. We may not know some of our ancestral line and who that particular person was. But that's a time where, as Iya Rosa said, we can be still and go in and connect and find out who that might be who embodied this particular characteristic and how they can support us by coming through and just guiding us to the right people, the right opportunities, the right places and circumstances so that we can tap powerfully into that energy. So they are always there and ready to guide us if we just ask, even if we don't know their name. And, I would also say something that, we spoke to in today's service earlier was that our ancestors, they don't have to be part of our bloodline.
Yes, I want to get to that in a moment, because that
Okay.
was just fascinating, and I want to drill down on that in a moment.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
I can't wait for that.
okay. There's a plethora of energies out there just poised to
Yes,
support us.
yes, absolutely. And Iya Rosa, one of the things that I find fascinating is that you channel the ancestors, and you've done so a lot. What is some of the clearest general guidance that most ancestors might have for us?
I don't know if that's an interesting question. Because those that are walking on the other plane intercept, step in, help us in so many ways that we can't even count them all. We're not aware of them.
Yes.
When your car doesn't start and you hear that a block away there was an accident, that's someone stepped in to help you. Someone stepped in to help you. And they're not always looking for the recognition. Some don't need to be lifted up in that kind of way. We don't know why those on the other plane are working on our behalf as they do.
Yes.
It's easy to say, it's pretty elementary to say that my grandmother loved me, so that's why she's doing it for me. Yeah. But there's so many others who are all working toward divinity.
Yes.
And they all have a mandate. They have something that they need to complete. Sometimes they connect with us for all kinds of reasons. We don't necessarily know who they are. I don't always know who's coming through, but I give thanks to the spirit that's coming through. And in Spanish, we say luz y progreso. We say light and progress to the spirit who's giving us guidance at this point. We don't have that wisdom. They have the wisdom because they're seeing more than we are able to see.
Yes.
We just accept and receive and give thanks to God for having the opportunity to do that.
Yes, absolutely. When I channel, quite often Spirit will say, there is an army of lovers waiting to serve you. And it reminds me of something that we talked about earlier today as well, which is when we grow, they grow. When we heal, they heal. So their purpose in supporting us might be because they are aligning with us for our collective healing. And that was fascinating. Now, one of the other things that was quite fascinating earlier today was the idea that it doesn't have to be, our ancestors don't have to be our blood relatives. And it reminded me of something that our beloved Reverend Lisa Ray taught. I took a class with her that was fascinating. And it was a class where we could tap into the energy of anyone who had a skill set that we needed to acquire in order to allow our prosperity. It sounds like that's what you were intimating earlier today, Reverend Tonya. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. We resonate to different energies. And, I would dare say, because, we're here during this lifetime with a particular bloodline, but many of us have been here before. And we have been part of other bloodlines and other cultures, et cetera, et cetera. So who knows, it seems like an infinite opportunity to tap into energies that are out there to support us, to energies that we may resonate with on some level. So we may, I was speaking earlier about Harriet Tubman and the affinity I had with her. And I know that there have been many people that we've experienced at Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel that that, I have on my ancestor altar,
Yes.
because I see them as my ancestors. And I know that, I can call on them to work on my behalf. And, I'm definitely holding space for them and their healing and the healing of, all of their loved ones who are still here on this earth plane.
Now, I caught something that you said, and I want to drill down on it ever so briefly, and that is your ancestor altar, which I guess is your way of honoring, acknowledging, and subtly, tacitly inviting your ancestors. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes. So we can set up these spaces, to honor our ancestors, to pay homage to them, to remember them. It's any type of altar. I always love the play on words. ALTAR is the physical space, but if we want to alter or change or shift, ALTER, we can take it to the altar. And to me, an altar is just an outward expression of what's within our heart.
Yes.
And so for an ancestor altar, it's just the outward reminders of our ancestors. So we might have pictures of them. We might have different artifacts or things that, that they used to like, or, we might feed them and put foods on there that they enjoy. We may have flowers and pour water, pour libation, and have just different elemental representations on the altar. And they can be powerful, powerful spaces to tap into the ancestor energy.
So in essence, the altar, because it's a portal between our world and the world beyond, that altar, when we honor the ancestors, is an invitation, in a sense. Would you say that?
Oh, I love that. Yes. Yes. Okay. And I know Iya Rosa may be able to speak even more deeply to that from her tradition.
Please, Iya Rosa.
So one thing that we have not talked about is that we are, we're always, our discussion has been about a lot about their helping us. But I've learned that when one makes this transition, all of the burdens and illnesses and whatever that they carried don't automatically disappear. Sometimes they do, and they're totally at rest. It depends. It's different for each person that makes their transition. So that altar serves another purpose in that it lifts them up.
Oh, okay.
It helps them. It relieves them. So that they are able to find light, to feel happy again if they left this plane sad or in pain or whatever. It helps them to move on to wherever, because they're moving on to an eternity that, wanting to be closer to God. They're looking for that divinity. So it really is a what do you say? It's a
two-way street.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Okay.
When I lift up and I know that my dad is happy, I know that he can pay more attention and do more that he needs, that he can do for himself, as well as for all of us that he's left here.
Wow.
So it's not, and it took me, when my brother passed, I learned that transition that we think when the heart stops, they're gone and everything has changed. No, that's not. Transition takes a while. This is why we lift them up for a while. Why we
in
do
some traditions,
novena.
it's 40 days after.
Yes.
Yes.
In Catholic Church, it's a 9-day novena, that 9. And that 9 is repeated often. So it's always, and they are starting to make their transition. How many times have we heard about grandma saying she sees somebody on this other side, but she's still alive?
They're coming together. Yeah.
Yes.
And, in some traditions, it's a year. In the Jewish tradition, I think they dedicate the headstone a year after, because they give them that much time for the transition. So as A Course in Miracles says, when we are healed, we are not healed alone. They come to support us in our journey of healing, but our healing supports them as well. It's almost like As the masters say, we are all one long guitar string, and when you pluck it and its vibration changes and the tune changes in one place, that vibration goes up and down the guitar string through the generations, backwards and forwards. So that's absolutely fascinating. There's so
And
much more. Go
one
ahead.
other point I want to make is that their time and our time is not the same.
Okay.
So that when we are thinking that in a couple of days this will pass, or I need to get an answer or something, understand that time on the other plane, God's time. How much do we know? God's time, it's always, he's always on time, but it's not necessarily
It's not our time.
at the time that mortals want things to happen. Understand
Exactly.
when you implore, when you ask your ancestors for help, the same thing happens. It doesn't mean that they don't hear you. They do. They'll respond. They will make their way, but just have faith and know that that will happen.
Beautiful. Just have faith in the ancestors because they have faith in you. So we've covered so much, but we've only scratched the surface. You guys have to come back again. I want to just thank you so much for being here and enlightening our audience. But I want our audience to know more about you as well. So Reverend Iya Rosa, who hung out our shingle recently, what are you up to these days?
I'm walking in the light.
Yes.
And I say my ancestors have a sense of humor. It was made clear to me that I needed to be near the water, and that I needed to do the channeling that I do, and the intuitive coaching that I do, that I was here to help people. So I do sessions with folks that are looking for clarity. Sometimes they're not looking for clarity. They think they're doing it for fun, but there's nothing accidental. They come for a reason, and we find out amazing things in sessions that we do. I do, and sometimes they are just find out what's happening for me in the next year. There's this issue related to love or work that I need to get to, but sometimes the guidance that comes is so clear about where you're supposed to go apply for that job, and which kind of shift you need to make in that career, or which house it is that you're supposed to buy. Sometimes it's very clear. And so I do sessions with folks. Sometimes they're, once every few months, or sometimes we do a package of sessions to work through particular issues.
Wonderful. And they can get in touch with you in the thing at the banner at the bottom of the screen. Is that accurate?
Yes, I'm on Facebook as Iya Rosa.
Wonderful. So we know how to get you. Thank you. And Reverend Tonya, you were the Tina Turner of spirituality. The hardest working woman in God business.
Oh, you cracked me up, Reverend Jim.
So I know you're up to so much, but we don't have 17 days. So tell us about the Witch Forum.
Oh my goodness. Well, many folks know that last year we published an Amazon bestseller, Witch Voices, Women in Tune with Conscious Healing, Remember Their Truth and Reclaim Their Power. And we had a 6-day Witch Voices Illuminated virtual retreat. And so this year we're having an afternoon retreat, and it is 7 witches healing through the 7 chakras as their 1-year anniversary of the book. And that is on the winter solstice as well, December 21st from 2 to 6 p.m. And folks can find out that information all over my Facebook, my Tonya Parker Facebook, and also my Mind, Body, and Soul Food page. And I also have another book coming out, Reverend Jim.
And you're redoing the ABCs?
I'm redoing my first ABC book, ABC Away from Danger to Opportunity, spiritual activism in changing times.
Mm.
Very relevant right now at this time, and
Yes.
it is expanded. And so that will come out this month, and I'm excited about that.
Oh, I'm excited about that too, because that's one of my favorite books. It's
Oh,
one of my
thank you
favorite
so
books.
much. Well,
You
Reverend
know,
Jim, I mean, you're always writing books, and I'm just wondering, what are you up to?
oh, well, I'm up to some fun stuff right now. As we move into the new year, you know, Spirit is always downloading more and more to me about, I guess I'm a prosperity channel because Spirit is always downloading more and more. So what I'm doing in January is I'm doing 2 8-week classes. And the whole premise of the classes is living your vision. So your vision is not just an aspiration. So that your vision is not just something that you put on the page and wish for, like the Sears wish book, but living your vision. Powerful spiritual treatments, powerful spiritual transformations, powerful spiritual interventions. So on Monday nights for 8 weeks, you get to ask questions directly of Spirit because I channel about how you can live your vision. They will offer treatments. They will offer razor sharp guidance and instruction to you based on your situation for how you can live your vision. And they will offer healings and transformational energy specific to you for how you can live your vision, not just wish your vision. And this starts in January. And I'm supplementing that with a practicum, an experiential class on Thursday nights called, of course, Living Your Vision. Now, there's a whole lot that they're doing there because the veil is effectively lifted. So, what they're doing some new techniques. They're doing a technique called your 10-minute vision board, how you can sketch out a vision board in 10 minutes and manifest what's on that vision board within an hour. They're looking at how you can leverage the back of the vision board. Nobody has ever talked about the back of the vision board, but they've been working on some ways that we can leverage the back of the vision board to make that vision board more likely to manifest more quickly. We're also going to learn to tap into the energy, the universal energies that can help us. Might be some ancestors, might be some famous folks who have exhibited the same energies, but they're going to work with us so that we can practically tap into universal wisdom in order to bring our visions to life. So this 8 weeks, and people have already, in my classes, have already had some literally shocking results. But this 8-week intensive is going to be off the chain. So that's one of the things I'm working on. The other thing I'm working on is I'm an order taker, right? So what I mean by that is I put out this thing where during the month of December, my sessions, which are usually $150, are only $99. So you can buy gift certificates. You can buy them for yourself or for others to be redeemed later. And they're $99 during the month of December. So that's available to everyone. And so I spend a lot of time taking orders on the phone now. I want this gift certificate for my cousin Heidi. I want this gift certificate for my cousin Rosa. Can you get them to me in the mail tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, we can do that. So that's the other thing I'm working on. And of course, I got a new book in my back pocket, but I'll tell you more about that later.
Of course.
Like Stephen King, just throw out a new book every 6 months.
Right. I love it.
So that's what I'm up to. But we're all up to great fun because Spirit can be great fun. Working with Spirit can be great fun. It can help us in the world.
Yes.
So I want to thank you all for being with us tonight. I want to thank our audience for their participation. Our audience has loved it. I've been looking at some of the comments out of the corner of my eye.
Oh, I have too. They've been so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to thank you, Iya Rosa. I want to thank you, Reverend Tonya. I want to thank our audience and our producer, Michael, for this wonderful evening here on the Miracle of Prosperity. Good night.
Good night.
And